Every month we host a high school Bible study, and it's called the Second Sunday Bible Study, just so that the high schools remember that it happens on the second Sunday. We really thought really hard on that name, but just the reason why I'm telling you all this is that was last night, so my kitchen is still reflecting that we had a bunch of high schoolers in our house, so bear with me. What's the saying? With great power comes great responsibility. I wouldn't go as far as saying I possess great power, but I would say I do possess a great deal of responsibility. And to shed a little light on just who I am, if you're just finding this channel, I'm Abby, known in this space as the gal down the road. And this is where I share the stirrings of my heart as a wife and a mother, and even a grandmother. It's where I share what life is like homesteading on the Nebraska prairie with a whole lot of Jesus woven through this thing that is my life. So those responsibilities I carry around as a wife of 28 years, I think. I am so bad at that. My hubby knows it right off the top of his head. I do not. And my responsibility as a mother, even to our sons who are full grown and out on their own. My responsibilities there look a little bit different. They have changed because God has given them amazing wives, and now my responsibility is to uphold and protect their marriage. Like it says in Matthew, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife. Christ spoke these words, and we remain obedient to them, just like we are in our own marriage. And then there's those responsibilities that I have as a homekeeper. So I think I need to retract my statement that I said earlier that I don't possess great power. Homekeepers most definitely possess not just great, but sometimes superpowers. I think we have to get everything done that we do in a day's time caring for our families, and it is no small feat. And sadly, we will all feel it at some point. It's just part of the game that it can feel like a very thankless job, especially when our babies are little or we have toddlers and they're sitting on our feet while we're on the toilet. You know what I'm talking about, moms, you do. And all their needs are tended to by mama. I feel like I should interject here just a word of encouragement to those moms who are feeling the heaviness of responsibility and being touched all the time by little hands of need. And it's just, this time is so fleeting, and just soak it up. Hold the babies, rock them. One day it's just not going to be there anymore, and you're going to long for those moments, for all those who knows what chatty little conversations on the bathroom floor when you just really want a minute, but you're going to want those back. And you have superpowers. And if I could add to your list of superpowers, I would say that preparing food for our families falls under that category. And I thought today, as I clean up my kitchen after our second Sunday Bible study, I would share with you one of the simplest foods I make for my family, while I also share with you one of the heart rooms of our farmhouse, my 100-year-old kitchen. But first, let's talk butter. I mentioned homesteading on the Nebraska prairie. A little fun fact about me and my family is that we're multi-generation. We have 3 generations right now living under our roof, and we own a little patch of heaven in southwest Nebraska called Foundation Homestead, where we operate a micro dairy. All of our milk products are raw. We don't pasteurize. We don't do anything to the milk. It's just as God made it to be. We currently have 5 dairy cows. We have more cattle, but 5 of those are dairy, and 3 of them are in our milking rotation. We milk twice a day, which typically gives us around 10 to 12 gallons a day. What on earth do we do with 10 to 12 gallons a day, 7 days a week, which equals out to be 77 gallons a week? Our milk supply serves our house needs first, and then the surplus is sold in our barn store that is located right here on the homestead, right at the end of our driveway. Butter is just one of the things I make with our milk, and I would say it's one of the things I make the most. Butter is like crack out here, people. I cannot even tell you how much I make, and there's never enough to keep up with demand. The other thing I probably make the most of with our milk is our Matamoo ice cream, which is also available in the barn store, and it's worth the drive out here to try if you ever find yourself in our neck of the woods. But we were talking about butter, so let's get back at that. Twice a week, I skim the cream, and a portion of it is kept for the barn, and the other I bring to the house to make butter. I like to keep the process as simple as I can because, let's be honest, as homekeepers, another superpower of ours is to work smarter, not harder. Wow, sometimes words can be hard. Another thing for that, making it as simple as possible, is that I usually lose interest if something has 5,000 steps and 5,000 parts. Ain't nobody got time for that, right? Especially if it's something that you do often. So I try to keep anything that is a continual chore, it needs to stay on the simple side. And keeping it simple kind of helps when you have not the most ideal setup. One of the challenges in my 100-plus-year-old kitchen is I only have 2 plugins. One supplies power to our microwave and our Keurig, leaving me with one by the stove, which is also the only counter space I have. We solved the lack of counter space by getting this industrial stainless steel table we use as an island, and I love it because I don't have to worry about what I put on it, as in temperature-wise. It's easy to clean, all the things. When we purchased it 20 years ago, it was an investment. I'm not sure how much it cost, and I'm not sure what the price tag would be on one of those now, but it has been worth every penny and then some. This was my grandmother's kitchen before it was mine, and it's hard for me to wrap my brain around the fact that she had even less counter space than I have. I can remember a kitchen table that was her only space to work on, and I can remember sitting on that table with my cousins, packed in this little kitchen, watching my grandpa dig the center out of a cardboard tub of Schwann's ice cream and pour a bottle of root beer into it. And we all waited anxiously with our spoons in hand, and when we were given the go, we all dug in at the same time. It's one of my few memories that I have of my maternal grandfather, and I treasure it. I can remember sitting on that table, and there was a teeny tiny little black and white TV, and the Atari sat right underneath it, so you had the big long cord across to your controller, and we played Frogger. But now that this is my kitchen, I'm so very thankful we added what little counter space we could when we renovated and restored the old farmhouse. But back to butter making. I use my KitchenAid as the mixing process, and it's a literal workhorse. I actually have 2. One is in the house, and then I have one in the barn kitchen that has a bigger engine on it. Bigger motor on it. It'll be a sad day if either of them decide to quit working because I use them a lot. But so far, so good. I do have my eye on another one, but it's more aesthetically pleasing, but it's not a need right now. To make butter, I use whole raw cream, so not pasteurized. Nothing has been done to it. It's just been skimmed right off the top of the milk. After about sitting overnight, I would say. So I don't really have any pointers on using pasteurized or all the things because, well, I run a dairy. I haven't bought milk from a store in, years. We'll just say years. So whole raw cream and salt are the only ingredients. And any salt will do, but I try to make it a habit to keep as pure and organic of ingredients I can get my hands on in our kitchen. Not organic as in certified organic by the powers that be. That certification doesn't really carry much weight with me anymore. Now that they're allowing organic foods to be sprayed with a chemical to make them last longer, and other things, but it's all just starting to kind of cancel out the whole organic purpose, right? So by organic, I mean as close as to the natural makeup God designed it to be. As with salt, I tend to look for ones with no additives, no sprays, with all the natural minerals left in it. Like, the best way I could explain it, take it out of the ground, put it in the package, kind of pure. So right now I'm using up a container of salt that came from Israel. Now, hear me out. Do I always have salt from Israel? No. Is all my food and ingredients organic and not processed? No. I have a plethora of convenience ingredients that come in very handy when I fail to meal plan or when we're getting down to the last couple of weeks before we do our 3-month restock. But I keep those to a minimum because I know they serve a purpose and there's no guilt when I use them. So here's me talking to my younger self, and maybe you too, if you have ever felt the pressure to do a certain thing because that's what a good and true homemaker would do or does. Like, only let your kids have wooden toys because you'll overstimulate their tiny little magnificent brains with a toy that lights up. Or you make your own laundry detergent because you're slowly killing your family using such and such a brand. There will be an ample amount of research and opinion on pretty much every little thing under the sun, and I'm not saying don't heed the warnings, but we as homekeepers have enough pressures and demands. Listen, you're not going to go to hell because your kid has a light up apple that sings the ABCs to him or that you use blue soap to wash your dishes. It's a focus that has shifted off of eternity and kingdom work and onto what the world finds value in. So I'm talking to myself and I'm talking to you because give yourself grace. Use the good sense God gave you. Do what you can realistically can do. And just be conscious. Be mindful of yourself and your own home. Your job is to be the best steward of what God has given you. It's my job to be the best steward of what God has given me, and our homes aren't the same. Our job is not to be the best mimicker of the next parenting fad or the next trending Puritan solution. Do what you can, make small changes, and extend yourself grace. Oofta. Sorry, got a little intense there. I usually do when it comes to the sweet, tender hearts God uniquely designed in us as women. But where was I? Oh yes, salt. The only other ingredient in butter, raw whole cream, and salt. today I have about 1.5 gallons of cream. The process is extremely simple. It's just a little time consuming, mostly because you have to keep an eye on the mixer or at least be in earshot of it, because when the butter turns, the buttermilk separates from the butter fat, and if you aren't close, at least close enough that you can hear your mixer and hurry and shut it off, the buttermilk will most likely end up all over the place and anything that's on the space around it. So a little tip for that is I put a tea towel over my mixer to keep that splatter to a minimum. And you can do this because you aren't leaving the mixer unattended. So you're always aware of that towel and the motor and all the things. So if there's other things you can do while your mixer is doing its thing, like finish up the dishes or finish up folding some laundry, those are things that you can get done, because you don't have to stand over the mixer and watch, but you'll be able to do other things as you do this more and more and get used to the sound of your mixer, because you'll be able to hear when it turns. And when it turns, you no longer have just one ingredient, you have two. Now you have the butter and the buttermilk. And I have a family favorite recipe that I share in another video, which I'll link. And so if you're so inclined, you can go over and check that out. Once the butter has turned, the buttermilk needs to be drained. I used to line my strainer with a cheesecloth, and then I would squeeze the butter while it was in the cheesecloth, but it just added one more thing that would have to be cleaned. And the whole purpose of everything is just to do it as simple as possible. So I found that I could do just as good as a job with my hands, like pressing it with my hands. So really the cheesecloth would be left to your own personal preference. The reason for squeezing and pressing as much of the buttermilk out as possible is because your butter will last longer. And I'm talking like either spoiling in days all the way to lasting to months. So you really want to get as much buttermilk as you can out. So I have squeezed all that first buttermilk out with my hands, and then when I feel like I've gotten it out, it's going to go into a bowl of cold water, which is really the first rinse. While it's in the first rinse, I get the mixer set up with another batch of cream. And the purpose for the first rinse is to ensure, once again, that all of that buttermilk is out. When you take the butterball out and squeeze it, the droplets should be clear. And once I'm satisfied with that first rinse, I flatten it out and then I sprinkle it with salt. This can also be a preference thing, and here's a few reasons why I salt our butter. Our butter stays out on the counter, not the whole supply, just the stick that we're using, and then also in our Butterbell crock. Salt is a preservant, so that's why we can leave it out like that. And another reason is, just like with the raw milk, the taste of it changes with the seasons. So in the winter months, when our native Nebraska prairie grasses and plants are dormant, our cows are fed baled tough grass and silage. So the winter milk and the summer milk have an entirely different taste. In the winter months, cows will typically produce less milk and yield higher butter fat. Winter butter will be whiter than the golden summer butter because the cow isn't grazing on fresh grasses. Their diet is a dried and a preserved source. Again, the amount of salt is a preference. I think if you do a quick search on the old internet, it recommends maybe 1/4 of a teaspoon for every 1/2 cup of butter. You just be a judge. It's your butter. You do what you want with it, however you want it to taste. The more you make it, you'll get comfortable and confident with knowing what your family likes. After I get the salt worked in, I put the butterball into a bowl of ice water, which serves as the second rinse and firms up the butter fats a little. I do this more out of habit because butter fats tend to be softer in the summer, just because the temperature, you're warm, the environment's warm. So the ice bath just aids in thickening the butter, easier to work with, and it's just one more step to ensure that all that buttermilk has been removed. I like to press my butter into stick molds that have 1 tablespoon measurement marks in the stick, so it makes it for easy measuring when I'm cooking. And I also put butter in our butter belt crock. This is what works for our household needs, and for myself as what I like to use in the kitchen. I store about 2 pounds of butter in the fridge at all times, just rotating out as needed, meaning that the new sticks that I'm making today will go in the bottom of the dish and the older ones will come to the top. The rest goes into the freezer, and the tip that I would have for putting in the freezer is just put something between each chunk of butter, just for easier removal. I wrap mine in unbleached parchment paper before putting it in the glass container in my freezer. It just makes it easier to grab just one and not have to chip it apart or thaw the whole thing just to get one off. I would say butter would be good to go in the freezer for, I don't know, probably a year. Just use your discretion on that. But I really have no reference point because it never sticks around that long. I used to use my butter paddles. I have these paddles that are for butter and also for making gnocchi. So now they're just for making gnocchi. And I used to make it into like 1 pound cubes. But I went off and I broke my favorite butter dish that would house the 1 pound cubes. So I haven't invested in another one. Around the holidays, I'll sometimes make pats just for fun, butter pats. I got some fancy shaped chocolate silicone molds. They really weren't necessary, but they sure make for a whimsy butter dish because it has all the cute little shapes in there. And who doesn't like a little whimsy on their holiday table spread? I sure do. One more tip about homemade butter in general is it will be on the hard side. More so in the winter than in the summer, and especially if it's kept in the fridge. So if you're planning to use it as a spread, it will need to be room temperature. It won't be spreadable right out of the fridge, and that's another reason why we keep our butter out. You can make your butter spreadable, like the kind you buy in the tub at the store, which most people are used to. It's pretty simple and straightforward, and I'm working on a video that will teach you how to do that process too. So if you'd like to know that, make sure you like and subscribe, and when that video comes out, you'll know right away. So now you have a new skill to add to your ever-evolving list of super homekeeper powers. If I can leave you with one more helpful tip, making butter at home is simple, but it can be messy. So wash your dishes as you go, and cleanup won't feel as daunting when you're all done. Wipe your mixer down, even the bottom, to ensure you get all the splatter and spilled buttermilk cleaned up, because it will spoil. So make sure you just clean underneath your mixer. Oh, and wear an apron or clothes you don't care about, because butter fat will leave spots. Trust me on this one too. I've got a drawer full of spotted shirts. And I finished up just as Miss M was getting home from wrestling practice. So I'm going to spend a little time with her while she eats this warmed up lasagna before she heads back out to youth group. Usually when she gets home from practice, she's in, but she loves youth group and it's super important to her. So it's one of the few things that can get her to go back out, I should say. I guess you could say I'm just like you. I'm a mom who has it together some days, and some days I ruin perfectly good shirts by making butter. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. I'll meet you back here next time down the road.